proceed with our next session, Sound and Visual Design, Integrating Invisible Sound into Aesthetic Spaces. I would like to take a minute to bring the introduction to you. Architects and interior designers like clean, undisturbed lines and beautiful flowing curves, accentuating the visual aesthetic of a venue. Sound, on the other hand, often seems like an afterthought, purely to meet the desired functionality. The happy goal, therefore, would be to have sound in any venue that delivers the desired functionality whilst not disturbing the visual aesthetic. I would like to invite all the speakers on stage. Mr. Prashant Govindan, Director, India, Generation AV, Private Limited. Adrian Ickeringill, Rachel Jacob. Can we please have you on stage? Also, just a special mention, Mr. Avinash's Oaks book is there available. If you want to have a look, please stay at the venue and give it a look. I would like to introduce our guests. Prashant Govindan, Director, works as an independent consultant with professional audio brands such as Martin Audio, Optimal Audio, Sonance, James Loudspeaker, HH Electronics, NST Audio, Surge X, and IMAX Systems. He has over 20 years of experience in starting up and growing businesses specializing in audio, video, lighting, transformation, and convergence. Please give a round of applause for Mr. Prashant Govindan. Mr. Adrian Ickeringill is an international sales director at Sonance for EMEA and India with 26 years of experience in the AV industry. With expertise in sales, retail, home automation, and business development, the veteran is serving the world with his professional skills from UK. Ickeringill has served as the general manager for the past 7 years at Restaurant in EMEA and is currently shaping the industry with his proficiency in sales. Please give a round of applause for Adrian Ickeringill also. We also have on stage Rachel Jacob, an architect with Munro Acoustics. She presents Munro in Bangalore and handles acoustics and AV design. Moreover, she helps bridge the gap between architecture design and acoustic performance and design more ergonomic spaces that are user-friendly while incorporating form and function. Jacob also works as 3D modeling software to analyze the acoustic and AV coverage patterns so that we can efficiently assimilate AV into the architectural intent. Let's hear it for Rachel Jacob. And with this, I would like to begin the session.
Good afternoon, everyone. Is everyone all beveraged up and ready to listen to us? Okay. So basically, this is a more of an open discussion. I invite the audience also to join in. And this is something that has been a passionate topic for all of us here on stage. So we decided to, kind of bring it up in what is largely a professional audio show. Not too many visual designers, not too many architects in the show, but I kind of stand up for their cause as well, because I sometimes hear their pain when we put up massive line-area speakers, which are any color, no color but black. So let me kick off this conversation by putting this question to the forum that, it's more of a hypothetical sort of question. Is form more important than function, or is function more important than form? Maybe Rachel can give us some insight.
So I think that that depends on the functionality of the space. So let's say a lobby space or a living space, if it's going to be background music, so there you're going to have form override the function. And a studio space, you'll have the function override the form, because audio is very integral when designing a studio. So like I said, when we start a design as an architectural approach, when we start designing, we first look into the conceptual space planning. So what happens is the main point of view here is the aesthetic. And like you said, a black box is not going to fit.
We haven't done any favors to the design community by, by putting those kind of boxes all over the place, right?
Exactly.
I mean, we're all about function. It has to sound right. It is, designed the acoustic. There's an acoustic chamber, and it needs to produce a certain level of sound, and the frequency response has to be such and such.
Yeah.
So to hell with design, right? Isn't that what we think? I mean, at least that's what the outside world thinks of us audio engineers, correct?
No, so the issue here is, I think when we're designing, we are keeping in mind of the client's requirements, and the AV maybe comes in very late. And that's why it's very hard to integrate AV and like speakers into our designs. But I suppose if we were to, incorporate these consultants way earlier into our design stages, it would be a more good integration of speakers.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Thanks for that insight,
Yeah.
Rachel.
Yeah.
I'd pop the same question to Adrian here. And I've known Adrian for fairly long time, and we have had this discussion over not this kind of a formal setting. Mostly, we have a few drinks down, and then we are swearing at some of the other people. But anyway, so Adrian, what's your take on what should take precedence? Should function be take precedence over form, and form can come later, or is form the real essence of design?
I mean, I think Rachel made the absolute point. It depends on the client expectations, and all too often in many of the applications that we go into in hospitality, very much form is the lead, and as you rightly said, all too often the AV is the last thing people think about. You're searching for design perfection. And then, we come in as an industry with what some interior designers refer to as, a dinner plate in the ceiling, and and it looks out of place, and it doesn't blend in with the space. So I think very much form leads in many instances. But then when you've got, key areas where, audio is taking more precedence because of that environment and experience, at that point, then the function element kicks in more and more. But certainly, 9 times out of 10, when we get involved, we try to get involved at the very early stage of the design. So working in conjunction with the design community to make sure that whatever goes in blends in with the design of the space, because that's critical.
So Rachel, coming back to you, so can you list maybe some of your experiences where the client has come to you and say, we do not need those speakers, or can you do with less speakers, or can you do with more intelligent audio design, where we are able to conceal a speaker, or maybe kind of make them disappear. Yeah, we need speakers. Yes, function is important. So how do we get past that argument? I mean, in my personal experience, it's only after they're installed and they see how ugly they look. It's like, no, it's not blending with the visual lines. It's a can you paint it white, or can you paint it pink? I've had some really interesting requests from the Middle East, especially, where the owner comes and says, I wanted gold. Wow, So we get these interesting requests all the time where we are always asked upon to kind of modify an existing design and then the functionality is obviously left to us. So do you have any such instances that you want to share with us?
So what I do in the office is basically integrate the AV with the architecture. So I do a lot of 3D to prevent this whole process going into that stage where it's already done, it's already put up, and we'll have to, remove the speakers or change the color of the speakers, like you said. So I'll give you an example of a particular space. We're designing this luxury house in Bangalore, and there's an indoor swimming pool, right? So one entire wall is just artwork, and the ceiling is mirror. And initially we had placed these black speakers on the wall, we weren't aware that there was an artwork wall coming there. And so we placed it, and the client was obviously like, wait, no, we can't have this here. And we had to, place column speakers on either edge of the swimming pool. So because of that, there's not direct sound coming in because it's column speakers. So that was a challenge, and that was the only solution we could find. And because there's a mirror there, there's also reflectivity. So that was one instance. And then, like I said, living rooms and other rooms where speakers are sound is in the foreground, we'll have to place it on the ceiling or, in wall. But a lot of times there's not enough space to place these speakers inside the panels, or because of height restrictions, we can't even do in ceiling. So we face so many challenges while integrating. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know that there's no one answer to that sort of a situation. I mean, I'll give you a couple of my experiences. So there's this heritage building in Mumbai. I won't take names here, but belongs to an industrialist, and he's a film buff, and he wanted to watch films every weekend, but he didn't want to go to a movie hall. So he called upon us and said, I want the same sort of sound in my heritage building, and he had allocated a whole floor for it. But these were cast iron pillars, and these were supported. There were arches and wooden rafters and everything. And he said, I want the same level of cinema sound that we hear in a PVR or an INOX or one of these places. And so we went about doing that, and of course it was a compromise formula. But we kind of got somewhere halfway there. But it's never a full-fledged solution. You never really drive the, you never get the amount of SPL you're looking for. You never really get the, so it's kind of a half-baked solution. What's your view, Adrian, in some of these situations? And I'll kind of pivot back to my question on technology and how, as a manufacturer, you had to literally tear your hair and say, hey, I wish we could solve these problems, and I know you have. So I want you to tell us some stories about how you've been able to achieve that, and drawing upon your vast experience with customers. How have you been able to address some of their concerns and share some happy stories with us? I mean, some before and after sort of situations, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, great question. I mean, one key example we have with our invisible speaker technology, we had an integrator in Finland who was doing a lot of immersive experiences into museums, and they were using conventional amplified speakers, nice compact speakers, sounded fantastic, great for their purpose. But the problem was, in the museum, they had specific design that they wanted to achieve, and they didn't want to see speakers anywhere. So at that point, the integrator was having to, hide the speakers, bounce the audio off the ceiling and the walls, and it just wasn't a great experience from a function point of view. So we demoed through our distribution partner in that market, we demoed our invisible speakers and gave them the concept that actually now you can do a home theatre concept and a full immersive experience, but from solutions that you don't even see, that are completely blended in. And once he started to hear the product, once he started to demo it and offer it on projects, I mean, that's his now go-to solution for the museum applications. So more and more challenges are put in the way because, clearly in that environment, they wanted to make sure that the form was the key element, but then they also wanted to make sure that they're going to get that immersive sound experience as well. So from our perspective, we've been in this invisible technology for over 20 years now. We acquired a company around 20 years ago called Sound Advance to deliver that kind of solution. They were one of the first to create that concept. But the problem has always been invisible sound, invisible technologies, plaster in more speakers have always been a compromise. And from an audio point of view, whilst it's completely invisible, there were complete, concessions in terms of the audio performance. You needed separate subwoofers, and you would never use this as an immersive sound solution. And through applying all of the technology we use for our conventional speakers, something called clip-all distortion analyzer, and the evaluation we do in all of our driver components. 2 years ago, we launched this range of product to actually deliver sound that's as good as our visible in ceiling and in wall products, even with plaster, wood veneer, wallpaper, and even leather applied to the invisible speaker. So a completely invisible source, but now sounding as good as a visible speaker. And that's something that we're so proud that we've been able to achieve, and we never thought we'd get to that stage.
No, you know, Adrian, for a lot of people outside of our industry, the moment you say invisible speaker, that almost sounds like a con job, right? Like, oh, there are invisible speakers, right? Where are they? You know, so, so my experience has been, whenever, I mean, all in jest, I've gone and pitched invisible speakers, and Sound Advance has been a very, very close brand to me. I mean, almost 15 years ago, we did a whole lot of installations with Sound Advance here in Mumbai, and I'll share an interesting anecdote. So I went to the customer, did the presentation, and said, sir, we'll give you invisible speakers. So he quipped, I'll give you invisible money. So, so you get paid invisible money when you sell invisible speakers. So that was a big joke in the organization back then. But true story. So we put in a whole bunch of speakers into a luxury hotel in Mumbai, not too far from here. And it was all working well, and it was in the ballroom. And we installed it, we did a great job, and it was all background music. It wasn't quite the technology that you have today, but it was flat panel NXT technology, as they used to call it. And we did the tests, and everyone was happy. We went home and slept. Next day morning, we arrived, and there's no sound. So we checked everything, and everything seemed to be in order. And then the Wi-Fi guy shows up, and we said, and so it turns out that the Wi-Fi guys, the networking guys, actually installed a router on top of the speakers because they couldn't see the speaker. So we summoned him and said, so what did you do? Oh, we thought it was spongy material. So anyways, so just some interesting anecdotes of selling invisible speakers back there. But tell us a little bit more about this invisible technology. I mean, I'm sure the audience here is intrigued to know more about how can you hide a speaker? Rachel, have you had an experience of, having to hide a speaker, completely make it disappear? Or like these guys call it design to disappear or something to that effect. Have you had an experience like that before?
So we've done a few home theaters where we placed the speaker behind the fabric. We can place the speaker.
But conventional speakers.
Yeah, conventional speakers. And we probably do the RAL color where you paint the speaker the same color as the exterior.
But that's not truly invisible, isn't it?
Yeah, that's not truly invisible.
So have you heard of invisible speakers before? Or is this the first time?
I think it's been around. Yeah,
right?
Yeah, it's been around.
But never been visible, right?
Yeah.
Sorry with my puns. But anyway, sorry, go on.
So personally, I don't think I've dealt with completely hiding a speaker. But yeah.
So maybe Adrian can throw some light on
how
they actually make this go away, kind of.
So as I mentioned, it's always been a bit of a compromise to create a plaster in-wall speaker. And for 20 years, we had that solution. And very core to our strategy is design to disappear. We'd say it's an integral part of our key pillars as a company. And so we charged our chief speaker designer, Todd Ryan, who oversees all of our speaker development, with a task of developing a whole new range of invisible product. And he adapted all of the scientific technology and the software that he uses called clip-all to flat diaphragm speaker design. So the first thing we did is we developed a wideband drive unit, tweeter mid-range array, and a woofer, conventional woofer, which is what speaker designers do. And you kind of blend it together like a recipe to create your speaker. And when we applied all the scientific laser technology that we do, we found that with a flat diaphragm design, we were getting from the waveband, wideband tweeter array, mid-range tweeter array, we were getting kind of a blended wave performance. So it's like putting a pebble in water, you get that blended wave motion. When we looked at the base, we were getting really this pistonic motion. And if you just allow the two of them to blend together, you'd get distortion, colorization, and it just would be a bad experience. So the key thing we did was we created this motion flex technology. So we segmented the mid-range tweeter array at the top of the speaker, and then we created an air chamber for the bass. And one of the key things with invisible speakers is they've never been able to deliver bass performance in the past. You'd always have to have a separate woofer. And the other critical factor is that what we had to do is when you're covering plaster or wallpaper or veneer, so what we couldn't have is issues of the finish. Once the finish is on, the plaster's on, the paint is on, we couldn't have a situation where there was any cracking or any issues with the front frame design. So with our we isolate the bass, and we've designed it so that it takes into account all of the excursion of the subwoofer. So it takes the maximum SPL level without impacting on any of the front diaphragm or any of the coverage on top of the solution. And so that allows us to deliver frequency ranges. With our 6-inch model, we get down to 50 hertz up to 20 kilohertz. We have an 8-inch woofer, the IS8, which goes from 40 hertz up to 30 kilohertz. And then we go down to an IS10, which is basically going down to 35 hertz up to 30 kilohertz. So we're all of a sudden able to deliver a really good frequency range overall, and from an invisible source.
So I think they got an image back here on an exploded view of how the transducers are married with the isolating baffle and everything, you know. So yeah, that's quite a breakthrough technology. Is it patented? Has it got intellectual property?
I believe we have put some patents forward, yeah, for that. I mean, the other critical element when we look at a plastering wall speaker, you know, you're going into decor, which is obviously, you know, high quality finishes. We do a lot of palaces and villas in the Middle East. You cannot afford to have any product issues once installed. And so what we built in as standard to these products is a poly switch. So if the product is being overdriven, it goes into protection mode. So from that point of view, we don't have, you know, any issues from a point of view of failure. We even have an insurance policy to take out the speaker and replace the speaker if required. Interestingly, we had an inquiry from a consultant in the UK who wanted to have our failure rates, and I got a report from the office, and it was like 0.03% across all of our portfolio of invisible products.
So just to kind of lead on with what you were saying, so are you actually saying that you can install these speakers inside a wall? Or if I heard you correctly, would you install these speakers inside a wall, and then would you plaster over it?
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow. Doesn't that sound incredible, Rachel? What do you think?
I think that will be pretty easy to incorporate with our aesthetics.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, so these are basically in-wall speakers, is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or in ceiling.
Or in ceiling, okay. And you put plaster over it, you put paint over it, you match with the exterior. Okay, lovely. Okay.
That sounds absolutely fascinating. Are there any other ways you could probably do this?
Are these IP rated? Can you put them external?
So they're not IP rated as such. So you could, if you've got, because effectively we'd use flexible plaster over them. So our limit is a 3 millimeter. That's our recommendation, maximum 3 millimeter of coverage. So if you've got in an outdoor environment, we do some projects around swimming pools where you're putting plaster over it. Obviously that's providing a complete seal over the speaker. And if the plaster is certainly waterproof or weatherproof, then it can go into that kind of environment. It's not something we'd kind of recommend for outdoor specific requirements, but certainly around a swimming pool where you said you'd got that application, then that would be certainly something you can do. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And can we use automotive paint on it, like as a finish? When you say plaster, certain projects you have some automotive paint requirements. Like, can you use any automotive paint over there?
So the plaster we recommend has to be flexible plaster. You can use wood veneer, you can use wallpaper. We've even got a project, we do a lot on super yachts as a company, and And of course, there you're really being challenged from an interior design point of view in the saloons, and we have a requirement for leather to go over the speakers as well. And we've tested it, and as long as it works within our remit of 3mm, that's fine. So from a plaster point of view, it's going to be a 3mm maximum of flexible plaster, and then you can apply whatever paint you want as long as it's a flexible paint. It's no problem at all. And that can be in wall, that can be in ceiling as well. No issues.
Thank you.
So this 3mm limit that you spoke about, is that acoustically, is it an acoustic deterrent, or, what determines that 3mm plaster or surface that you apply?
So the one thing that we've added into this product is we have discs in the corners of each of the speakers. So in the top and bottom of the speakers, we've incorporated these metal discs, and so once the plaster's covered over it, we have like a depth gauge measure. This is something that came from the automotive market, and actually you can go back to site and then you can magnetically pick up the discs, and actually it gives you a reading of how much coverage is on the speaker. So I think anything beyond 3mm, then you start to have a detrimental effect from an acoustic standpoint. And so this allows, from an installation point of view, you're giving direction to the site. It makes sure that everything is within the remit that we suggest, and it then delivers the best audio performance. The sweet spot is sort of 1 to 1.5mm, but 3mm is our maximum.
Right. One would imagine that, once you apply some layer of plaster, that would kind of dampen the sound to a certain extent. Some form of, would you compensate for that in terms of, so when you do cinema speakers, for example, you have a EQ curve that kind of compensates for, the screens in front and so on. So would you have some such formula, or is there a special DSP you need to apply to be able to compensate for loss of frequency?
So the whole product has been designed to work with coverage on top of it. So that flat diaphragm and the excursion that we deliver on the speakers, if you run these flat, they even sound, phenomenal as a solution. But we do have amplification with DSP curves, not only for the product point of view, but also the room environment. So we do a lot of high-end retail stores, Louis Vuitton and Valentino, and you could be then in acoustically live environments quite regularly. So we not only have DSP curves that we provide in about 4 different room settings, from acoustic dead to live, to enhance the product, but also enhance the product in that environment, in that setting as well.
Very, very cool. Anyone from the audience, do you have any questions about this particular technology, especially the flat panel technology? To me, it's incredible. When I actually saw these speakers, I couldn't believe them, and it sounds phenomenal. We've actually got a couple of them sitting in our booth at Generation AV, so come and take a look whenever you can, and they sound actually quite good, even at very, very low volumes. The other thing, I'll shift gears a little bit here. So Rachel, when do you have customers who ask for custom finishes, or some sort of, let's say, I have this, I think the Middle East has this fetish with gold for whatever reason. So do you have people who ask you for specific finishes? I remember Adrian mentioned leather. Is that something that you encounter sometimes with some of the requests that you get?
Yeah, so that depends on the aesthetics of the room. So example, there is a space where we're designing a space which is basically like a glass atrium, and the mullions are copper goldish color. So to match with that, we were to find a set of speakers that could be colored, the RAL color matching the mullions. So yeah, we get requests to get the speaker to be in harmony with the space. Yeah.
Right. So they would be painted in a certain color, and
Correct,
you'd kind of blend in with the wall colors, that sort of a thing, and place them in in corners that you can't typically see them, sort of. But I believe there is another technology, Adrian, where you have a small aperture, sort of a technology where you can actually make the speakers go away from the physical space, and the acoustic space is completely different. Can you throw some light on that technology as well?
Yeah, so we have we acquired a company 2 years ago now called James Loudspeaker, and they have a solution called Small Aperture, which is in a complete enclosure with a woofer built inside, and then we have a mid-range tweeter array that ports around the edge with the base. So actually what we've got is a 3 or 4 inch round or square grill that can be blended in with light fittings. We've even done some collaborations with lighting companies where you have a double light fitting, and in one side you have the light, and in the other side you have our speaker. So it's completely blended in with the space. It's part of the light fitting, and we've done that collaboration. And we have situations with the Small Aperture where we have completely flush grill finishes. We have wooden grill finishes. So in places like Scandinavia, there's often now a trend, and I've seen it while I've been here as well, for wooden ceilings, and invisible speakers can't always fit into that because it's thicker wooden panels. So what we have then is we provide CAD files so that with the wood paneling going in, you can see the cutout, and that becomes the grill. So again, you're blending in with that space, and that's why we start to get involved in a very early stage with the design community, because we're then part of that beginning of making sure that everything is hidden.
How much of this do you see in places like high-end luxury retail, for example? Because I can imagine that some of these very high-end luxury brands that want to do very bespoke showrooms where you have certain finishes and certain fabric and those sort of things, and wood. Wood is such a hard material to work with. Have you had such instances where you've been asked to provide completely wooden kind of decor, and maybe also incorporate sound into that sort of situation? Maybe like a log cabin, or some of these old houses with wooden rafters and stuff. Would you think that's something that you come across very often?
Yeah, for sure. I think, like he said, where there's like fully wooden ceiling, we've had a request to, place the speakers in a more subtle way to maybe keep the space aesthetically pleasing. But yeah, a lot of these luxury brands, like you said, and exhibition spaces where they're showcasing things, speakers like sitting out is not ideal. So what we usually do is place them in ceiling, or like I just said, spray paint them or color match them, things like that. Yeah.
Very cool. Something I came across something about 10 or 15 years ago, a concept called whispering windows. Have you heard of those, the whispering windows concept? So this is really interesting. Speaking of transducers and materials, so there used to be this company, I forget the manufacturer. So they would fix these really strong transducers on 4 corners of glass windows, which would pretty much go inside the frame, and as you walk past a store display, it would talk to you. So, women, they say, hey, buy this lipstick, or hey, buy this rouge or whatever. And there is an element of novelty in there. That's one. So imagine you're walking past a sneaker showcase and says, have you tried the new Nike sneaker, whatever, So, but it was quite interesting. It was in the UK, I believe. It's not full frequency response or everything, but it did speech quite well. So it's the glass pane that's actually turned into a speaker. Have you seen anything like that in recent times?
Yeah, we're working with some of the sort of integrators doing high-end retail stores around the world, and I've recently been over to Madrid and seen a showroom where there's so much more interactivity with the client coming into the store, and for the high-end retailers, that end consumer engagement is so important, and they put a lot more emphasis now on the AV side of things. So when we've got invisible speakers, we are able to give a lot more frequency coverage, but also higher levels of SPL. And the other thing they like is that with our speaker design, we've got 170-degree dispersion. And typically, a general speaker is about 120-degree at best. So by having that off-axis, that extra coverage, you've got more placement capabilities and flexibility as well, not only in wall, but also in ceiling. So it means that you might reduce the number of pairs of speakers, but still get good levels of coverage from our product in that instance. And we've created a 100-volt line for the retail space to deliver that. And so what the retailers like at that point is they can continue to refresh their interiors. The speakers are in there for a good number of years, and we have a 15-year warranty that comes with the product as well. So they have that comfort, they've got that backing.
Did I hear that right? 15-year warranty?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Wow.
Because it's an integral part of the infrastructure at that point, you've got to have that level of support in place as well.
But imagine if you had to rip out a speaker which is installed in a nice, beautiful wall. That would be a very happy experience.
Yeah, so reliability is absolutely paramount for that, but it gives them lots of comfort that they could just continue to get that experience for a longevity of time. Yeah.
Excellent. Anything you want to add to this in terms of customer experience or expectations? Do you think that this sort of a product or this kind of a technology can be applied to more spaces that you encounter? Because you're front-facing with customers pretty much every day, and since you are also in the design aspect of it, do you think that some of these might make sense going forward in emerging markets like India, for example?
Yeah, for sure. But I actually have a doubt. I have a question regarding the speaker. What is the mounting depth of the speaker?
So it's about under 70 millimeters.
Okay.
But we do have some low impedance products which are more for domestic or immersive audio experiences. When we go into the commercial space, we have a dedicated 100-volt line product. So it's under 100 mil, and it comes with an enclosure. And everything is then, built into that speaker, including the transformer.
Yeah, because as an architect, we'd have very little space to work with. So that's very important. Yeah.
Most times you figure that they haven't left any space in the back at all. Most of the ceilings that you see, it's all finished, and suddenly, even for traditional ceiling speakers to go in, you say you need at least 6 inches of space to at least install the speaker, and they're like, we don't have 3. We have maybe 3 inches. Would you be able to do with 1 inch maybe? Because for most people, loudspeakers tend to be just that little bit that you see on the outside, like what you said, a dinner plate on the ceiling. But that's something that we always encounter, don't we? Any questions from the audience? I think we are running short on time here.
We are working on a project, actually Rachel's working on a project with James ported subwoofers. How easy is it to incorporate the Sonance range with that you all provide? Because that has its own subwoofer, its own amplifier. And is there a DSP which, cross between, of course, the same brand under your umbrella to match Sonance with a woofer in this? That's one of the questions we had particularly on the product.
So if I heard you right, you're saying, does Sonance have a loudspeaker / DSP that kind of has the presets built into it for their ranges?
For James subwoofers, ported subwoofers.
For James and Sonance, right?
Yeah. With the James product line, we trying to build to order. So we have a facility in Minden, Nevada. We have our own factory there, and so there are Oh, you've been so there's an awful lot of customization that takes place. So we do have a lot of DSP curves that we've created for the James range to marry up with the Sonance product line, and we're constantly updating those all the time. I think because of the build-to-order nature and the customization, it's very difficult to have set DSPs. So we do have some suggested solutions that you can then adapt and evolve from what we created. And we're getting involved in joint design of drive units as well to incorporate our smooth frequency coverage, but enhancing the James SPL levels that they can deliver.
I had one last question, Adrian, for you. So how much of this comes out of R&D I know there has been a few acquisitions that the company has made, but how much of it is in-house development in terms of R&D, in terms of acoustic material, in terms of how do you research into materials, how do you find what kind of material goes on the speaker and all of that stuff. I mean, we could discuss all day, I know, but if you could give the audience an insight of some of the material technology behind it.
Absolutely. So we have our R&D test bed in California. So we're kind of in between San Diego and LA. We have our chief speaker designer, Todd Ryan, who's been with us about 26 years. And he has a team of engineers that work with him. And as I mentioned, we use some really, quality scientific technology to try and develop our drive units and test our drive units. And everything we do is from the ground up. It's all too easy as a manufacturer to maybe go to the Far East and go to a factory and take an assortment of product and piece them together and put a brand on it. But for us, sonic signature is very important, as well as the design to disappear philosophy. So whatever we put our name to has to deliver audio-wise in terms of quality, performance, as well as aesthetics. So you'll see, all of the Wave Flex mid-range tweeter array was all developed by our team. All the drive units were developed by our team in-house, and that really is tested to the hilt as well. So we tested for thousands of hours with different lots of coverage on there, just to make sure we can get the performance we want. Because when you look at an invisible product, you really are challenging yourself as a manufacturer to deliver, have longevity of product, have reliability, and really then to be seen as an alternative to conventional speakers. And so for us, that's the epitome of our design to disappear strategy. And so we needed to make sure that we put lots of investment, lots of R&D into that. We're a team of about 240 overall as a company. At any given time now, we're privately owned, so we're not beholden to any shareholders. And so from our point of view, we continue to invest in product development, in R&D. We've got, I think, placements for about 30 people now to join the company. So we're continually progressing what we're doing and investing in moving our business forward in the right direction, but always with this heritage of innovation, design to disappear philosophy, and to be an authentic partner. For us, we provide design services. So where you have a project, we can actually give with Invisible or with our Pro Series, we use ease address, so we can give you a heat map of audio coverage in the property. And that's particularly interesting when you look at invisible speakers. We're working with some of the high-end retailers to come up with brand standards, so they might have a level of, say, 80% of coverage, and we can work with them, design the solutions, and partner with them so they can understand what they want to achieve, and then that goes out to the installation market to price and deliver that solution. So that's an integral part of what we do. Absolutely.
Rachel, do you have any closing comments or anything that you want to share with us after this discussion? In my opinion, it's not form or function, it is form and function, right? And I think it's been a very interesting and insightful discussion. What do you think, Rachel?
Yeah, you're right. I think it's quite exciting how technology has come this far, and now we can keep it as form and function rather than one overriding the other. So this is quite exciting, incorporating a speaker into architecture. I've been trying to do that for quite a while. So yeah, this is great.
And I think you're absolutely right in terms of, I think now our industry, as we start to work more closely with the interior design and architects community, we then become involved at the very earlier stages because of the form element is so important to you, and also that function might be quite critical to the client, but that placement of the audio and the integration of that is also now ever more important. So working at an earlier stage on the design in support of what you're doing on the form fact is going to be ever more important.
I think that's well summarized. It's really, really heartening to know that there are manufacturers who are listening to the visual side of things. They are designing products that look good, sometimes disappear, trying to make, trying to keep form and function together and keep the architect community also involved, architect and interior designer community also involved, so that it can be a happy solution. We don't need to fight. We can all live happily ever after. I think on that note, I'd like to close this discussion. Thanks, Palm and Hive, for allowing us to take this forum to bring this to all of our audience here and all the viewers, probably on some of the channels that you're going to put it out on. It's more important to have these discussions. As a sound community, I think we tend to be very, very insular. We tend to focus only on our pain points, and we only discuss or only look at our side of the story. And when you start engaging with architects, visual designers, interior designers, do you understand their pain points and what the customers are looking for? So with this kind of technology comes to the rescue. Creativity and technology married together, I think, is a way for the future. Any closing comments from both of you?
Yeah, no, as I say, appreciate everybody listening today, and certainly come to see the Generation AV stand, because you can actually see and hear the product on the stand. And we welcome opportunities to work with you in the Indian market and help design some projects. And thank you for your time.
Thanks, Rachel. Thanks for your time as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone, for the wonderful session. I would request you to remain seated for the token of appreciation. Can I call Pooja Shah to present the certificates? Audience, please give a round of applause for Mr. Prashant Govindan. Please give a round of applause for Rachel Jacob. This was indeed a wonderful session. And I would also like to present the token to Adrian Ickeringill. Thank you so much, everyone.